Greed and rage were our undoing. The world as we knew it is gone. Our grim future is their gruesome reality. A planet suffocating beneath the weight of far too many humans, and not nearly enough resources, was purged by a nuclear cataclysm and reduced to a scorched, blackened husk. The final vestiges of the human race scuffle over the blistering carcass of a dead world. But whilst Armageddon might have seemed inevitable, a whole realm of uncanny forces skulked outside of the view of the mundane world, pulling the strings of mankind's blazing destruction. Supernatural horrors stir out in the darkness, and these paranormal predators can smell the scent of blood in the water.
A Place Called Lonely, Episode 4, Gods and Masters.
Get your greasy fucking hands off of me.
Behave yourself, whore. Unless you'd like me to shock you again.
I'll shove that taser up your ass, you prissy fucking...
Thank you, Lucan. You may unhand the prisoner.
Yes, my lord.
Fuck you, Kirchulze.
And as she tries to run, shoot her.
Yes, my lord.
I'm not gonna tell you shit, so you may as well just kill me. And get it over with, you wannabe tyrant.
Oh, I very much think that you'll be complying, Miss Montrose. Unless you want my inquisitors to pay your friend Karloff a visit.
Fuck you, you and your communion are the worst thing to ever happen to the wasteland.
So you say, barbarian. You will tell me what happened at the Battle of Woking before my knights liberated the city, or I will make sure that Karloff is handed over to my most, how shall I put it, passionate inquisitors. And I can promise you, they will not be lenient. Do I make myself clear?
Where do you want me to start?
At the beginning.
Taken from the memoirs of Sir August Calloway, soldier, adventurer, and patron of the arts. For me, the Battle of Woking started exactly 8 hours prior to the breaching of the walls, when a perturbed occupant of the Three Pins took it upon themselves to end my cheerful night with a bottle to the back of the head. I awoke the next day with a pounding headache and a note thrust under my door, advising me that my conduct the previous night had been unbecoming of an officer of the watch, and that my services would no longer be required. This was damned inconvenient, as the wages I had been drawing for this position were the only thing keeping me in the life of ease that I had become accustomed to over the years. Not willing to slink away like a kicked dog, I decided to march down to the barracks and present my case. I armed myself with a sword and pistol, as I wished to present myself as a soldier, guilty of nothing save being an enthusiastic drinking partner, and also because I had made up my mind that if I were to see the bastard who wronged me the previous night, I would shoot him down in the fucking street. Coming downstairs into the main dining room of the establishment, I was rather put out to discover that none of my breakfasting essentials had been provided. As my regular readers will know, I usually begin the day with a slice of toast, a poached egg, a cup of Earl Grey, and a nip of brandy, and my landlady was well aware of my habits, but nothing had been provided. Making up my mind to have it out with her later, I stepped out onto the street, and right into hell. Woking was, and was being the operative word, a quaint little town, perhaps a little overwrought with drunkards and hooligans, myself notwithstanding, but otherwise a rather cushy posting. It was, after all, why I, after the excitement I had endured on the road south of Kent, see previous volume, The Mad Maidens of Maidstone, washed up there. It was therefore a terrible shock to see the streets overrun with a horde of untamed, unwashed and frothing at the mouth, the true successors of this brave new world. Happily, as a dutiful soldier of the watch, I knew the layout of the town like the back of my hand, and therefore turned about face and made my way in the opposite direction. As I rounded the corner, I saw Lieutenant Maywell. Maywell was a good chap, a little dour, but always game for a round of bridge, and not stingy with his coin. Anyway, Maywell's head was gone, and most of his upper body too. He was still standing up, or what was left of him was, and his troops were milling about in varying degrees of distress, as one might in such a circumstance, but I had little sympathy, being in my own crisis of faith. More out of habit than purpose, I waded in, giving them the keen edge of my tongue and standing them to order. After all, I reasoned if the worst were to happen and the Untamed were to turn about in my direction, having a staunch line of militiamen between them and I would give me at least 2 or 3 minutes of a head start. Unfortunately, before I could put the spine back into them, the Untamed were upon us. Even the best men in the wasteland are hard put to defend themselves against the savagery of those monsters, and not to speak ill of the dead, but those poor fools were not up to snuff. In moments the last of the men had fallen, and knowing that I would be unable to outpace the Untamed, I turned to them, drawing my arms and preparing to die with dignity. Or, if the opportunity presented itself, convince them that I would make a good slave. Thankfully, it was at that point that I was rescued by none other than one of the Montrose sisters, a gang of banshee bitches that tore the wasteland, putting fear in the hearts of the honest. This one, however, seemed slightly more philanthropic than the rest. Egad, but that woman could fight. I have danced with the wild women of West Chelsea, and swaggered my sword with the blackguards at Knightsbridge, and when discretion has been abandoned and only valour remains, I myself have been known to fight like a desperate cat with its back to the wall. But what I witnessed that day was an art beyond the scope of my ability. And as soon as it began, it was done. The Untamed lay like rats around a dog, and the Montrose woman stood in the midst of it all, still breathing. I took a step forward, but she hissed at me, and then was gone, just like that. Maywell's men were dead. The Untamed were dead. But most importantly, I was alive. And, as the gun smoke cleared and the dying stilled, I looked around at the empty scene, and myself, the last man standing, and realized something more. I was a fucking hero.
The Memoirs of December Elwyn. Chapter 23. December Saves the Day. Namaste, motherfuckers. It's no secret that I am an unnaturally productive individual. You don't become the Empress of Murder and Mayhem without a fuckload of hard work, after all. But not everyone can be as driven as I am. Obviously. I'm the calm inside the storm of this wavy, wavy world. In this chapter, I'm going to discuss one of those frequent occurrences where I had to pick up the slack and do everyone else's job for them. How do I explain what happened at the Battle of Woking? How could I spell out what the mask were doing there? Perhaps I should go back to the beginning. I wasn't born on Earth. I am a child of the Orpheus Space Colony. I am a daughter of the stars. High above the wasteland, in the screaming void of space, a group of very bad people built themselves a floating city of steel and fire. This was all before the bombs fell, but when the world was already screeching towards mutually assured destruction. I think they knew what was coming. I was born in the lowest reaches of Orpheus, in slums full of belching smoke and roaring flame. I was bred to be a worker in the factories that catered to the decadent whims of Orpheus's elite. I think that's where my taste for debauchery came from. I always wanted what I couldn't have. When I was a teenager, I broke away from a life of servitude and fell in with one of the squabbling gangs that stalked through burned-out corners of the lower decks. They were a frightfully pathetic lot. I've no idea how they got by without me. And it didn't take long before I was running the show. The silly prat who used to run them called the gang the Locusts, which caused me genuine offence. Anyway, those locusts would grow to become my beautiful mask. My new children and I stole a shuttle and left Orpheus behind us, snatching up all the guns that we could carry. With moi in charge, it wasn't long before the mask was some of the biggest, baddest players in the wasteland. Of course, I had to break my fair share of necks and slit more than a few throats, but how else would one seize the crown? I suppose there may have been other, less macabre ways of building myself a life on this earth, but I always found it easier to kick a door down than to knock politely. By the time our first year on the planet was through, the Blood Heralds, the Howling Stars, and the Vonnegut family had all sworn fealty to me. It was a very gruesome affair, but only through the depths of pain does one arrive at the heights of pleasure. It was around that time that the creature Sara made herself known to me. Why does this taste like gasoline? Needs more gunpowder. Where was I? Oh, right. I assume you've heard those troglodyte moon shaman prattling on about their goddess Nera. Well, turns out there's two of them. Sisters, like the twin sides of the moon. Nera is the smooth, sunbathed aspect of the moon that we all see shining down on us and reflecting the dazzling light of the sun. Sara, on the other hand, is the jagged, misshapen swathe of gnarled rock which the darkness of space hides from our sensitive little eyes. Two sides of one coin, two hands, two faces. Whilst Nera lorded around in public, making her majesty known to all, Sara stalked quietly through the shadows, toiling away in obscurity. They're not human. I know that much. Sara said that her name roughly translates as the Black Moon in English. Quite a fitting mantle for such a deliciously sinful creature. She said that we had a lot in common. She told me we were both women of purpose and power. It's rare that I meet someone who interests me, and rarer still that I meet someone who utterly fascinates me. Sara wanted to know all about Orpheus, and I was more than happy to tell her, for a price. So, we made a deal. In return for her assistance in solidifying my hold over the wasteland, I gave her access to all of the swanky technology that the mask and I had brought down from Orpheus. With my invaluable assistance, Sara figured out that the very bad people who built Orpheus were hiding some tasty little secrets in a bunker beneath Woking. So, we resolved to go on one more destructive conquest together. Sara's shark-crazed mules did a dreadful job of attacking the city. Some yokels with guns managed to push the Untamed back. But they weren't counting on my beautiful mask turning up and reinforcing the assault. The mask tore through Woking, spewing fire and spilling blood. By all reports, it was a fucking massacre. I've never been so proud of my children and all the gorgeous carnage that they spread. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. We drove those shivering wretches deep into the heart of Woking. They were surrounded on all sides by Sara's barbarians and my cold-blooded killers. But we weren't counting on what happened next. The last time I was that repulsed and disappointed was when that jizz-sniffing writer described me as fleshy. I am voluptuous. I'd also accept Rubenesque and curvaceous, but fleshy. What sort of pathetic Judas claims to be a writer, yet has such a miserable grasp of art and beauty, and decides to call me fleshy? I am a voluptuous queen, darling.
Subject known as Karloff, no last name. Occupation barkeep, apparently. He has been arrested and charged with violent resistance against the communion.
If by arrested you mean captured and held against my will by your thugs.
Silence! The subject will not speak unless asked a question. Now, you were instrumental in holding the town and resisting the Untamed and the Mask.
Was I?
Please detail the events of the last stand of the people of Woking before their deliverance by the Holy Order of the Pale Communion.
Holy Order of the... Is that what Kirchulze is calling his band of brigands these days?
If your insolence continues, I will be forced to tell Lord Kirchulze that you are being uncooperative, and I guarantee that he won't ask as nicely as I am.
I'm not scared of Kirchulze.
Then you should know that your comrade Firtha is also being held here, and if you should persist in your defiance, well, let's just say that things won't go so well for her.
You bastard. Fine, I'll talk. What do you want to know?
The mask we're about to take Woking with the help of those abominations, the Untamed. Tell me how you and Firtha led the people in a last stand against them.
You really think that's how it went down? What happened was I barricaded the door to the pub to protect the people who couldn't fight. We were waiting for them to come when she burst in through the storeroom window. I thought she was an Untamed at first, and I was about to grab her and bash her brains out against the wall when we recognised each other. We'd fought together at Winchester a long time ago, but I still remember it, though I wish I didn't. I'd killed hundreds in the field, tearing them apart like they were nothing. She said that I'd fought like a machine, called me brutal, bloody terrifying in a way that sounded like she was impressed. Once, I would have taken it as a compliment. And Winchester fell, and the battle, if it can even be called that, was over, and I watched the cathedral burn, and its coloured glass shattered and fell like rain over the ash-coated bodies. And I thought, is this what we fight for? To obliterate all life and beauty from the world?
This testimony is irrelevant. Subject: Winchester fell a long time ago. Please return to the matter at hand.
Firtha asked why I wouldn't fight and called me a coward as she reloaded her gun. I said that I didn't care what she thought of me. I vowed a long time ago to never kill another person, and that pissed her off.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the last free towns left in England is under siege, and you can't be bothered to lift a finger to help defend it? Don't you give a shit about dying?
That's beside the point. The town will fall, and there's nothing I can do about it. Whether I fight or not, it won't make a difference to the outcome.
You know something? You remind me of my sisters. They cut themselves off from the world too, because they were afraid.
But you have each other.
Yeah, we're one big happy family. Except for me, that is. Black sheep and all that.
All of you against the world. I never understood why you left them behind.
To be part of something bigger. Isn't that why you came here and worked in a pub? To be around people every night, to feel like you were one of them. To be part of humanity.
And that's exactly why I couldn't fight. I couldn't risk losing them. How I was back then, when I killed without a second thought. I wasn't human. And what's worse is, I loved the feeling, the sensation of it. I was dead, but I'd never felt so alive. That's what I was addicted to, what the Untamed feel. It's what I was made to be. The perfect weapon. And that's why I couldn't do it, because I can't be that thing anymore.
But don't you see? If the city falls, everything you've built here will be destroyed. If you don't fight now, they're all going to die. This is what it means to be human. To care, to give a shit what happens to others. This is your city, your people. And I think we both know that you aren't going to let them die at the hands of the bloody Untamed. Now stand up and fight.
Did the clone ever mention anything to you about the Dead Man Institute? Even in passing?
So that's what he's after. Kirchulze must really be desperate if he's taken the city, based on some pre-war fairy tale.
Firtha's a loose end.
She doesn't know anything. She's a bloody third generation. Do you think she's going to give you insight to some pre-war cloning experiment that happened before she was even born?
Please detail the point at which you joined the fighting.
There was this kid, Benji. Just a boy who wiped tables and cleaned up after ungrateful sots that came in every night. He liked me because when we unloaded deliveries, I could carry a barrel under each arm, no problem. Made his job easier. He wasn't a fighter, and I told him that surviving was the best that he could do for now, but he wasn't happy about that, kept saying he couldn't hide like a coward. I've seen thousands of boys like him die fighting on the battlefield for what they thought was freedom, only to come to nothing. But this was his home, and those people dying out there were his people. While I was talking to Firtha, he unbarricaded the door and ran waving his pistol.
And then?
I saw him gunned down in the street right in front of me, and then Firtha ran out, heading for the wall. There was blood in the gutters, and the air was thick with the dust from falling mortar and the sounds of screaming. Everywhere I looked, people were running. The town was like an unturned anthill. And then I saw the Untamed, with their bloodshot eyes and their saliva jaws.
Disgusting savages.
On that, at least, we agree. Faced them before, but never so many. Well, I thought, town's gone to hell, might as well take them with it. One of them ran at me, and I caught him in my arms and broke him, before tossing him to the ground like a rag doll. As he lay there, I realised that I'd forgotten how good that felt.
It is right and just to destroy the ones tainted with unholy poison.
Nothing right about what I did next. I tore through the lot of them, until I got to the wall. There were more climbing over, so I threw them down and just kept going. I saw Firtha and some other people fighting beside me, and I could swear she was smiling through bloody teeth. People fell, we kept fighting. I don't remember much else. There was just red and screaming and tearing, blood-hot clotting my hands. When I picked up the gun, the trigger was slippery with it, but we were driving them back, and I was enjoying it. This was everything. This is what I was made for, and I loved it. The freedom of being able to kill without consequence. I saw myself in their deranged eyes, a giant roaring at them out of the darkness to destroy them. And then you lot turned up. You'd driven back the Untamed, and the mosque had turned tail and fled, but people weren't cheering. There was only silence and smoke and the sound of weeping.
You killed many of our men before we could subdue you.
And why the fuck not? Everyone I knew was likely dead. There wasn't any point in trying to be human anymore.
Now that we have brought you to justice, you must pay for your crimes. Your fate is for Lord Kirchulze to decide.
Kirchulze is a megalomaniac, and it's people like him just want to keep the world violent and brutal. Fuck him, and fuck your communion.
The subject will not speak unless addressed.
You don't scare me, little man. I could tear you apart like a child pulling the legs of an insect.
You are our captive, and you will do as I say.
No, I don't think so. Woking is yours now. There's only one thing left for me here. I'm leaving.
No. Stop. I'll shoot.
Just try it. See what happens.
No. That's impossible.
Now do you see? I'm nothing. Just dead meat.
Guards. Guards, no, please. No.
There's no use struggling.
You monster.
Just dead meat.
Between the Untamed and the Mask, none of us had any fight left in us. I don't need to tell you how effortless your victory was.
And Karloff didn't mention anything about the Dead Man Institute to you.
Oh yeah, we had a nice long chat about it whilst the Untamed were trying to rip our throats out.
I think that will be all, Lucan.
Yes, my lord.
No, wait!
That girl had nothing useful to tell us. Karloff was our target, but it seems we underestimated him.
My lord, there was no way we could have...
Starting a hunt without knowing one's prey is a fool's game. You misjudged Karloff, and we have all suffered for it. I expect you to discipline your remaining men, Lucan.
Yes, my lord.
This is not a war we can afford to lose, Lucan. Humanity has never faced a threat more dangerous, nor more sadistic, than the Ara.
I understand, my lord. Leadership requires fortitude.
I know what people think of me, Lucan. I don't need your platitudes. I don't need love or praise. If humanity needs a monster to save it, then c'est la vie.
Men respect you, my lord. We all understand the burden that has been placed on your shoulders.
The blackened earth and the shattered, poison-choked skies are testament to the failings of democracy, Lucan. Humanity needs a firm hand. If mankind will not bow to my decree, then it will perish. There can be no second-guessing. There can be no surrender. I will build humanity a new home. In the Outlands, we will become stronger than we have ever been. Or we will fade into extinction. Death or glory, Lucan. There is no middle ground.
You're the new girl, right? What are you doing down here in the dark? Are you sure you're going to be alright? All alone in the archives?
Yeah, that's right. Beth Cross. I just came on board. I'm really looking forward to working with you, Miss Tennison. I love the show. My friend Dee is a huge fan.
Thank you. That's very sweet, honey. You don't need to fish through here, though. You know, we picked the archives clean years ago. I doubt there's anything that the team missed.
Oh, I thought it would be worth investigating at least. I wanted to get familiar with everything anyway. There might be a story hidden somewhere, you know.
Right. Well, I'll leave you to it. Don't let me keep you from trawling around in these dusty old files.
Oh, to be able to breathe freely. Activate archive custodian function.
Custodian function activated. All systems at optimal efficiency. Welcome to the Deadman Archives, user.
Access shielded files. Date of documentation 13th 10th 1989.
Access denied. Security clearance required. Input password.
Password New Dawn.
Password accepted. Access granted. Beginning playback.
Thank you, sweet Dee.
Prime Minister, I must protest. You've seen what's on the other side. The potential benefits are massively outweighed by the undoubtable dangers. The Deadman Institute has spent nearly a century...
The Deadman Institute is no longer in control of this project. You are here to offer guidance and nothing more.
Then listen to my guidance and...
Thank you for your input. Open the conduit.
Prime Minister,
Open it. With access to these outlands, Britain can become truly independent. Such extraordinary opportunity. This will be my legacy.